Welcome back to another amazing episode of the FitBiz Journey podcast. Happy New Year! This is the first new episode of the year, and no better way to start the year but going back to Austin, Texas to see the founders of Gym Lunch, Alex and Leah Hormozi. And if you have not seen their previous episodes, you gotta see it first, because these 3 separate episodes are in a timeline. We're starting out with Alex Hormozi and his story, how he got started, all the way up to the timeline when he met Leah, who is now his business partner and wife. And then together they created Gym Lunch, and then today you are going to hear about Gym Lunch and how amazing and giant it became, and how it helps many gym owners every single month to become a multi-million-dollar company. And that is what it's so about, that they are helping other gym owners who are struggling and helping gym owners to be better. And on top of that, they just launched their newest line of Gym Lunch companies, which is done for you meals. And I'm super excited to try it out because it's basically something that nobody have done in the industry. They created an amazing meal company, I should say meal delivery company. They drop shipping it, they fast shipping it on dry ice, and you get your meals fresh and it tastes good, high protein, organic, I think it's organic, all natural, and no crappy ingredients in it. In this episode, Alex and Leah literally explains how to build an A-team for your business. And they have done that because their company is extremely successful with over 100 employees and over 50 million in revenue. They have really done something amazing here. And in this episode, they are going to share it with you. So, the 2 separate interviews were amazing. Now we need to put it up together and it gets even better.
Let's take a vote.
We'll vote.
Whose was better?
Yeah.
We will do that.
Layla wins.
And I wanted to start up with because we heard the both separate stories and all led into one big thing, Gym Lunch. Mm-hmm. So now we're here at Gym Lunch, which consists of many things, from supplements, right? From obviously the advertising, the sales, the mastermind, and goes on, and you adding software and the hybrid model. Is that separate?
No, that's all. It's all the
So I just wanted to start. Now you guys are settled. So Gym Lunch is it for now, and that's what you do. So once you decided that this is it, you both got on the same page and you went through a huge growth sprout, right? That's what I heard. Mm-hmm. So what was the number one thing that you had when you had to say, all right, we need to pull the plug, we need to slow down, or we need to find talent? What was the one thing that was growth problems?
I think that the first growth problem is deciding who owns what. So I think that that's probably, every time you grow, you have to reassess who's accountable for what functions and what numbers in the business. And that's the biggest thing, that whether you have 2 people, you've got 5 people, you've got 10 people, 30, 75, 100, it breaks at all of those points. And so that's probably the number one problem that happens when you're growing, and that kind of ties in with making sure that the people that are on your team when you're growing are able to grow with you to the next level. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times an entrepreneur hires people and they think these are the right people, and then a year later that entrepreneur's perspective has changed and they've learned a lot more and they're like, oh crap, they're not the right people. And I think that's the most painful part of growth to me, as being the people-oriented person in the business.
Right away I asked Alex and Leah to basically talk about the employees and how to change out a set of people at such a fast-growing company, because unfortunately with the people that you start with at the beginning of the company when it was such a small company, and then how big it became today, then sometimes not all the employees can keep up. And they are explaining what they had to go through, which wasn't easy. And Alex and Leah just basically says it right, and you need to take notes because you might have to do the same thing. Do you want to add to it before I?
No, I think she covered it.
Yeah, I agree with the growth is, and especially the people, you have to go through so many changes. In your case, you've grown so fast. So if the people don't keep up, then you must change, unfortunately, and that could be heartbreaking, especially because you said you hired your first friends, right? When you guys first started out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a lot of people that we were close with, and it's not like they're bad people or they suck at employees. It's just you'd be better in another business, you'll have a better future in another business. And so if I know you're not gonna have a future here, I'm just preventing you from really fulfilling your own potential.
Exactly.
So that's my responsibility to make sure I don't do that.
Yeah. Have you guys had, at this point, I know it's still very soon, but have you had like, you had to let somebody go and then turns out that it was a really good choice for them and now you have a good story, or no?
Yeah.
It was a good choice for them to let them go. I've never regretted letting anyone go.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, all
no,
of
you
them.
mean like your case. In their case, they ended up like, oh, thank you. Now I'm whatever.
Yeah, you get both. I think, I've had people who are like, I'm really glad, I'm grateful for everything we had, I understand. And then you have people who are like, fuck you, I hate you, and you get the both. So, but I think we've had a lot of people who have been gracious about it, which is awesome, and they understand. I think it's people who don't understand fast-growing companies and that it's normal to switch out teams and people. Those are the people that are not as quite understanding.
What's interesting is that the people that are the most negative on the way out the door are the ones that you're like you're incredibly confident and happy about the decision that you made. Yeah. If like you ever want an employer to second guess, just be like amazing on the way out the door, and then they're gonna be like, shoot, I wonder, maybe they weren't, maybe I shouldn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. But when you're just like a crazy person on the way out, then it's like, I can't believe they were in the business, jeez.
Yeah, thank goodness, yeah.
That's a good point. So now I asked Leila and Alex about hiring the people, because as such a fast-growing company, I wanted to know that how much percentage of your new hires should be people who are brand new to this. I usually call them green beans because they're completely new to this, versus people who have done what you're hiring them to do. Because so many times you hear it that if you hire people that have done it, is good or bad. There are so many, 50-50 I would say, that so many people says that they cannot be changed, so they're not gonna know what to do. I mean, you're not gonna know what to do with them. And then some people say that it's a good thing because they know what to do and you just get out of their way. So now I'm just really excited to hear that what they did, because they have built an amazingly successful company. So I just want to know if they hire new people or they hire people who have done it.
It's a process. It takes a while. Like to find our CFO, for example, took 5 months. So you've got to find a recruiting firm. You've got to teach them about your business. You have to sell them on your business. They've got to reach out to people. And most of the people that we need right now already have jobs. We're not, for the most part, like looking for higher level leadership positions. We need people who have done it before because we haven't done a lot of it before. And it would be doing a disservice. Like if you think about a company, most companies, you want 80% of the people there to have done the job before, 20% haven't.
And not to mention, right now the market is hot. So what I mean is that all the good talent not looking for a job at all. And then if they're looking for a job, they're looking for like 5 seconds. So you almost like you have to poach them, or what you did.
That's exactly what we did. We did too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. It's
business.
Exactly. And then opportunities. If they close to it, then they close to it. If they open, then they come. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. And what was the so now you're growing, you're hiring, you got a CFO, and what were let's say the first 5 most important hire that you think you made for the company?
That's good. I think us establishing our roles and the difference between our roles was huge. Because at first it was kind of like Leila's Alex's helper, and then it was like, no, Alex owns these departments, Leila owns these.
So that was a switch, because at first it was what you just said, right?
Yeah, it was a big change.
Yeah. Second, I would say, is an executive assistant. For myself, I think having someone who's flexible, they can be your right hand when you're growing really fast. I needed somebody to help me, like build new departments and then find someone to hire and then put them there and then do. And so it's changing constantly. And so getting someone who's operations minded, like an executive assistant, who has this experience, who's organized, detail oriented, that was huge for me. Like she's with me today. I want her forever. She's amazing. So that was a really pivotal hire. I would say from there, finding someone that it's really then leadership positions from then on out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big mistakes that we made early on was and everyone makes it, and you read it in the books, and then you think you're special, and then you're not. And it's just like taking an individual contributor who's doing really well, and then, putting them as a manager. And a lot of times the skill sets of being a manager are entirely different than being an individual contributor. And then making the mistake yet again and saying, oh, let's make them a director. Let's take a frontline customer service person and make them director of customer service overall, for somebody who's never done it. And then they just make all these mistakes that someone who has done it would just never do. You know what I mean? And so that's very much like where we've gone with everything now, is like we just only hire people who have already done it multiple times. And so they should be coming in and telling us what we should be doing better, rather than like us telling them how the job should be. Mm-hmm. And I would say my understanding of talent has dramatically stretched in the last 4 years. I remember when I had my gyms, I would say a $30,000 a year employee was like a normal employee. And then if I paid someone like 40 or 50, it's like, you've got to be a star. I mean, you've got to be unbelievable. And that was like kind of the highest caliber I could think of. And then we hired our first people at like $70,000 a year. And I was like, oh wow, these are these are higher caliber people. And then we hired our first 6-figure employee and it was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is a new level of talent. And then we found our first executive who had done, 15 exits and had done rounds of financing and done just millions of things. And I was like, oh, this is really what it looks like. And so it's just that you kind of have to put the number out there in order to, it's kind of like the ticket for entry for like that level of player. And then all of a sudden you still have to interview everyone because, you know what I mean? They don't come for the money. The money is just expected at a certain level.
I would say if someone's making their first hires, they need to outsource the lowest level skills first.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't make sense that Alex would outsource marketing or sales before he would outsource, billing, HR, all that. So always start with the lowest skill set.
Yeah. So now I wanted to know that, how do you know if you found the right talent, right? Because on paper, somebody could look amazing, and maybe they have done so many amazing things in separate companies, but once you bring them in, they might not the right fit for your culture. So I wanted to ask them, Alex and Leah, and how do you know and what to do when you find out that someone is just not the right fit for the culture?
I think we had one higher level position that we didn't hire. We missed one of our core tenets in terms of I don't think it was a match, and that came out, within 8 weeks with that person. And it was mutual. It was like, we both knew it wasn't working. I think, honestly, you just have to be really loud about your culture. We have hoodies and sweatshirts, and we talk about them all the time. We talk about them client-facing. We talk about them internally. We go over them. We give recognition for adhering to those. They're everywhere. Everyone understands our core tenets and what's normal, right? And so it's just what are the normal ways you act in a company? And I think, I don't care how talented someone is, if they don't fit the culture, it won't work, because you have to want to be around people all the time too. And people want to work with people and want to be around people who have the same values that they do, and they look at life the same way. And that's just bottom line. You can have diversity within that, but the values are the thing that you have to adhere to. And so in our process, when we hire, we have a culture interview, which is basically, I created questions that are triggering, not asking them, do you believe in this, but it's getting them to show if they actually believe in it. You know what I mean? Giving examples and things like that, and testing them. Kind of pushing on people even in interviews. I don't want people to have an ego, so it's push on them. Tell them, well, that doesn't sound right. Do that and see how they react. Things like that, and then we have a lot of. We've done culture decks. We do culture talks with the company, and I've had people come. It was actually the woman who we had hired. I don't think it was a match, and I say one thing, which is I say, here we're a team, not a family, and that's because I think it's a lie when people say, oh, we're a family here. I'm like, get the fuck out. You're not gonna fire your son for not making his bed, but you'll fire Sally if she doesn't hit her numbers. And so I say that, and some people don't jive with it. And so I think just being as loud as possible, as blunt as possible, is about your culture, and making sure that when you're hiring people, you test them.
Okay with it, yeah. And so right now you guys have how many employees and contractors combined?
Combined, we have about 130.
130, yeah. So obviously culture is number one right now, and huge focus, I assume, yeah.
Yeah.
So with 130, and then, but if I understand it correctly, you have been running the business basically from home, right? Virtually, not technically home.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been 100% remote.
Remote, yeah. Wow. So now that, what would you recommend? Do you have experience in office yet, or no, not yet?
No.
Prior to this, I've worked in offices, but never, not in this business.
Not your own with other people, right? Yeah. No. So now is the time when you guys thinking about an office, right? Office space, possibly.
Yeah, a headquarters.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And what do you think? What would you focus on to able to bring out the culture?
Man, honestly, we get together at least 4 times a year, the leadership team. We see a lot of them in between then anyways, because we have events and things like that. Honestly, it's just exemplifying the culture. It really starts with the leadership. It's a lot easier to control the culture if you hire the right leaders, and they will spread the culture.
It's demonstration.
Yes, and so we talk about it often. If we're in an office with people, I have no worries about the culture, because the culture, we exemplify it every day. Yeah. And so I think it would be more intense and brought out more if we have the headquarters.
I'm pretty sure that you guys want to know as well that what their day looks like, right? Because I was dying to find out what is Leila's and what is Alex's day looks like, because their days are entirely different. And you will hear why, and you will also get a glimpse of what it looks like to be an executive in the fitness industry to a really high-performing company. And this is what it looks like. Alex and Leah is going to share it right now.
Yeah, your day is a little bit different than my day.
Yeah, her day is entirely different than mine is.
Yeah, so my days, I wake up I map out my day, I clear my head, get the right frame of mind, what are the top things I need to do today, and then what are the things I need to delegate to someone else. Following that, then I will do cardio while I answer all my emails and clear out my inbox, clear out my Asana, clear out all my projects, things like that. And then I work out with a trainer for an hour. After that, eat, shower, get ready, and start meetings at anywhere between 8:30 and 9:30.
All here?
Yep, all at the house.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Commuting.
Yeah. And then I mostly have meetings throughout the day, so I would say I usually have anywhere from like 6 to 12 meetings a day, and I have a walking treadmill desk, so I walk half the meetings. Sometimes every once in a while we have in-person meetings with people or people that come here, things like that. And then usually the day ends at, I would say 5:36 is when we try to wrap up, and then we eat dinner at 6, and then after dinner is when we try not to work. Obviously we get pinged and things like that, and we usually answer till a certain time, but like I'm like after 8 o'clock I don't look at my phone. Like I'm not.
Same, Alex?
I'm entirely different.
Which direction?
This is everything. Layla, I mean, I think if I was like Layla, we'd be 3 times as big as we are now. Layla is incredibly regimented and disciplined. I am just disciplined. And I think part of that is because the nature of our work is very different. And so a lot of my work is very like creative thought processes and it's really like most of what I have to do is essentially selling. And it's not like actually selling for a sale, but selling a concept, right? And so whether that's selling something to the team, which is oftentimes a lot of what it is, or making the presentations I'm going to present for value for the gym owners. And so typically I have very few tasks, but that are very, very big. And so I might only really do 2 to 3 things a week, but it'll be like 2 to 3 big projects. And so everyone's kind of objective is to keep my day as empty as possible. And so for me, I usually know the night before the one thing I'm going to do the next day, and I try and just not get distracted by anything and just do that. So that could be, like I said, presentations. It could be writing a ton of ads for our marketing team. It could be writing a ton of ads for the gym owners. It could be building a funnel. It could be, it's just a little bit more varied. Writing a sales script. There's there's just a lot of
painting the vision a lot of the times. This is job. Like, I need you to talk to this department to give the vision.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah.
And so that's honestly where the majority of my day goes. Obviously, I have 3 departments that roll into me, and so I connect with them. But the people who are in charge of those departments are very
self-sufficient.
Yeah, they're very self-sufficient. I have a daily pulse on marketing because messaging matters a lot to me in terms of what our marketing is saying, and so I have a daily pulse there. But Cole, who's our sales manager, turned around 13 24-hour fitnesses with sales teams, so he's extremely like finding people who've done this before. He knows how to do it. He's very good at doing it. It's like, so in my meetings with him, it's less of like the tactics of how to manage a sales team. He could probably teach me more about it than I can. And more so like, okay, big picture, where are we going? What are the things that we should be preparing for? If we're gonna be selling this in 6 months, who do we need to start hiring? What does that need to look like? What does that role? What does that comp look like? Just like kind of those kind of conversations. And so, but usually it's just like, Fridays are pretty shot for me because they're usually my presentation days. Monday are the only days I do meetings, and then I only have like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to kind of like do my big tasks. And that's like pretty much my week.
You were right, completely, entirely different.
Yeah.
But in a good way, because you need both, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I want to touch base on a little bit the vision that you mentioned, and then keep the team, because you guys are far away from the team. So far away and close because technology. I don't know if you know this, but Alexa and Leia doesn't have a giant office with the hundreds of people inside of that single office that they walk into like Apple and they see each other, right? So they're working remotely from home. So how much time would you say you spend time on just the vision itself for the employees to make sure they move forward?
Well, we have a cadence in place. So, daily huddles, we remind people. Weekly, we send out emails that say top of mind for Alex and Layla, for example. And it's
That's great. That's
right.
Awesome.
And so it's like, what's our top of mind? And then updates for all the departments. And then we monthly talk about where we're at with our strategic initiatives, what progress we've made. Are we making any changes? Especially if we have to make a change, then we might have an extra meeting we put in place. So say we'll add another one on a different day and say, hey, instead of having a daily huddle today, we're going to have a whole meeting because we need to change some things because of this data we have now. Here we go.
So everybody is completely connected because they see basically this information about the company weekly, daily, everything.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, that's what I was wondering, how everybody's completely connected and just work instead of like wake up and I think I'm going to turn on Netflix today.
No, they have, I mean, every department has a pulse check every day. The whole company has a daily pulse check. We all hop on for 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's very regimented in terms of communication.
One of the things that's been nice about virtual is that it forced us to be deliberate about communication. A lot of times when you start in person, you don't realize all these micro touch points that communication is happening that you're not aware of. Whereas when you're virtual, like if you are not on a Zoom meeting, you're probably not communicating. And so you have to be way more structured. And I think that we learned a lot of skills quickly because we had to. And so I think it's been really beneficial for us.
That's actually a good point too, because not to mention some people are really bad at body language and giving out different signals too as they speak, you know? So that could be also tricky. But in your case, it's actually perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely different in person. When you meet people in person, you're like, wow, you're way more talkative than you are online.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I noticed. People don't want to unmute on Zoom.
Yeah.
Where some people you meet immediately, and we've had this happen where we hired them and we had actually met them in person. We meet them in person and we're like, oh, you're not a fit. Like we can immediately see.
Well,
it.
in a person, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they don't talk negatively on Zoom, but suddenly they're completely negative when you're talking to them. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah, you're quiet, but now you are very negative.
Yeah,
so
no
we don't
thanks.
want you.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you would hire people too that you never met before?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, well, because virtual, yeah. And then when you guys meet 4 times a year, basically, everyone.
No.
No, our strategic team, so it's about 12 of us.
Yeah.
So directors, executives, and then if we select, we don't have many managers, just leads. But if we select anyone else, we would.
A couple of key personnel who are like, they would have some like they have to be able to provide value. They don't just like, if you're going to come, you have to have things to say.
If you don't talk, then you're not invited back.
Right.
Put it that way.
That's a great role. I love it. This is awesome. You guys built a really good company. That and off camera I mentioned corporate, and then you were like cringed a little bit. So. But,
But it does. It turns a lot more. I think, you know, it's happened so fast, but it's changed a ton. You know, and you see it within the people. When I was like, hey, we're not a family anymore. We're a team. We got to run it like this. Because we study high performance companies. I'm like, we can't act like this. We have to have higher standards, right? Corporations
look like corporations because that is what it takes to be that size. Is you have to be incredibly regimented about communication. You have to have processes. You have to have SLAs, so service level agreements for each department. What's expected. You know, and a lot of times some of that stuff happens too because of just the legal environment. You know, you have to have these processes in place for HR and for hiring and firing and for setting expectations and all that kind of corporations happen as a result of the external environment, and so it becomes a natural conclusion. What we have to do is just make sure that when you become corporate, they don't lose the speed of execution and innovation of being smaller.
So now, after all this, I bet you are thinking the same thing. What is next for Gym Lunch? What is next for Alex and Leah Hormozi? So let's find out.
Well, everything right now, so like my attention right now is we have meals launching in a month. So all of our gyms will be able to sell done for you packaged meals, which will be awesome. It'll be another revenue stream for them without any operational complexity. So it's just like they can just do that. And everything we do is just trying to make gyms more money. So if we can help them capitalize on multiple pockets of their customers then and not do it in an operationally heavy way, then it just adds more revenue that their customers were spending elsewhere now that they can capture that for themselves. And so the supplement company was the first thing we did there, and that automatically was a multi-8-figure business. And then the food hopefully will be the same because honestly I think more people will want to buy food than supplements, so that should be pretty encouraging. And then kind of the big push for 2020 is the software, and that's basically because the biggest pain point that we've seen with our facilities, and this is kind of where like my job is like, where's the biggest pain, where's the biggest opportunity, what can we do given our skill sets and resources to help, right? And so when we looked at like all of the data that we have, just to give an example, a low performing gym might close 20% of people who walk in the door. A high performing gym might close 70, right? And so you're talking about like a 3.5x difference based on selling, and that's huge. But a bigger difference was when we looked at the gyms who work their leads versus don't work the leads. A gym that's not working the leads might only get 5% or 2.5% of their leads in the door, and a guy who works their leads really hard might get 50% of their leads in the door, or 60, whatever. But if you just looked at between 2.5, or just say 5 and 50, it's a 10x differential between a low performer and a high performer. So I can actually 10x someone's sales without actually teaching them new skills, which is much more difficult than actually putting processes in place. And so that's what the software, what we've been working on for the last 18 months is how can we actually automate, because there's only a certain amount of things that get said in a conversation. Well, there's actually a lot. We have over 6,000 rules in the software that govern the conversation. And so it helps. Basically now when they generate leads automatically, they don't have to have the back office that's calling them all the time, because we just know what that process needs to look like. And it's just, that's kind of what 2020 looks like for us, is then all they have to do from an operational standpoint is you run your ads, or someone's running your ads, whatever. Leads are getting worked. And so all your business really begins at the sale, which makes life so much easier, because it's just the sale and then fulfillment. And that just makes, and that's where most people do pretty well. And so that's, as many variables as we can remove from their success, then the more likely they are to succeed. And so that's ultimately everything that we try and do, is just how can we make this simpler? How can we make this shorter? How can we make this easier because the thing is winners win, right? And so if we only based it on the fact that, 1 out of 100 people is super successful, then like that's not a good program. And so for us, it's like, how can we get all of these people at the bottom of the bucket? How can we take someone who would normally not be successful and make them a profitable gym? Maybe they're not going to be superstars because they're not really a winner, they're not a champion, but they're going to actually be able to feed their families and not go out of business. And so that's why Gym Launch has been able to grow bigger than everyone else, I think, is because we're able to help people who aren't really good get pretty good results. And that's really been it. I would say most people can only focus on the very top, the very cream of the crop, who would get results with just about anyone. And you see that when you see the same people as testimonials for 6 different companies. That's not because of the companies, that's because of the people, right? And I'm sure you've probably been a top executor in every coach, guru, whatever you want to say business you've been in, but that's because of you, right? And so we try and not take, like your success is your own. We will provide all the tools. We know what it looks like. We've done it a lot of times, and we know what the formula is. Whether or not you execute is going to be, or the level of your execution is usually dependent on your skill set and all the other stuff that people have outside of their lives, which is usually the reason that they are having problems.
Yeah, no, that's 100% correct, and that's really good. I'm really glad to hear that, because number one pain point right now is software, and then what you mentioned is the automations and lead follow-up, and sales, just bring them into the door. It's a huge pain point. Nobody wants to do it. It's crazy to me. And then the one thing that you mentioned about the take it off of their plate, the number one thing in our gyms too, the pain point you want to take off is literally, so trainers don't have to do anything but focus on their clients, and that's it. And then everybody's happy.
Simple focus.
Exactly.
And that's it. Yep.
That's awesome. And that's what happened to you when we did the interview. You basically simplified everything and went into Gym Launch. It works.
Focus and patience.
Everybody should take note of this, because I basically asked them about deadlines, timelines, and when is the next launch and all these things. And Alex and Leah gave me a pretty good answer what to expect on deadlines, timelines at such a big company and at such a big productions. And it's different when you're a visionary leader. You have the lofty timelines, just like Elon Musk. He announces things, that it's going to be ready by X, and usually it's ready by X. So let's see what Leah and Alex has to say about that.
So we're kind of in the middle of launching it right now. So we're adding about 100 gyms a week to it as we go right now. Yeah, so we spent 7 months. So we spent 5 months in alpha, and we spent 3 months in beta. And so right now there's just, after the alpha, the tech was ready, but then it took 3 months to, I would say, get all of the human factors ready. So the onboarding process, the implementation, kind of troubleshooting different ways that someone can break things. There was 100 ways that we did not know that thing could be broken. And so we kind of had to codify all those and figure that out so that when people do get onboarded, we can prevent all of those things from the onset with like a streamlined process. And so that just took time. It took a lot of phone calls, a lot of follow-ups, a lot of just troubleshooting with people. And I wish we'll probably joke about, like, this is for anyone who's watching, is that like the entrepreneur timeline versus like the reality timeline is, Elon Musk announced that the car was going to be ready 3 years before it actually was ready. So you're like, this should only take this amount of time. And that's assuming like nothing goes wrong and everything goes perfect. And so, I mean, my goal was to have this 100% rolled out October 4th. And so are we in November?
Yeah.
And so like I was supposed to be 100% rolled out then. And so now we're more like, it's probably going to be like end of November. So we're like 8 weeks later, but it's better to do it and do it right, because I think in the long run, just like Tesla, if the car is good, then no one will remember.
Exactly. And that's perfect that you said that too, because there's so many people who do those deadlines, but some people can't take that because some people are so on deadlines. Are you also open a little bit when it's
A deadline person?
Yeah, meaning.
It depends on what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to like things that my direct reports like are due, and it's not like a project that's dependent upon 5 other departments, dependent upon them. I'm pretty stingy. I'm like, why was this not done? But when it comes to like cross-departmental things, I always think that they're going to take longer. So we actually go back and forth. He's like, it'll be done then. I'm like, add 3 months, and then it's like we're like,
It
yeah.
ends up being in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's same with me. It's same with so many people. It's just the regular, just like you said, entrepreneur timeline.
Yeah, and I mean, it's because, to be fair, if you're the visionary for your company, then like you have to be the eternal optimist. Like that is your goal. That is your role in the company. Is like you need to be eternally optimistic about what is going to happen, what's hope, where the opportunity is. But you need to also be balanced with that, with someone who's really grounded in reality, who's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't think the team can take all that right now. We need to, and we've had to table. I would say we had a huge project that we're probably tabling until maybe Q2 of next year, and it was a big thing that we put a lot of time into. But
Over a year, yeah.
Yeah, we put over a year and a few $1 million into it, and it was like, it is focus. You know what I mean? It's like we can't do everything. As much as I want to solve every problem that a gym has, like we have to do it in the right order, and it has to work, and we have to have the processes and the people.
Yeah.
And,
The shiny apple syndrome.
yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Because I think that's a really big point, because there's so many, especially successful people like you have opportunities. So how hard is that to say no to the opportunities and only focus either on what you already said, or when do you know that opportunity is knocking on your door and you need to say no?
I think almost, I'll take this one. Focus and patience have been the 2 hardest learned lessons that I've had over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, and I think what's interesting is that like, you know it going into it, but the temptress looks more and more attractive the higher up you go. So the level of opportunity that you have to say no to goes up. And so like, I think people watching, they probably have opportunities that are thrown their way as well. And it's just at that level, like you're not getting thrown a level 10 opportunity, you're getting thrown a level 3 opportunity. But a lot of times, almost every time, it's just a distraction from the thing that you should do, because usually new is what you want, but better is what you need. Yeah. And so that's where it's like, if we just do this one thing better than everyone, it's kind of the fallacy of well, I'll just tell you a story to illustrate it. So I had a friend from high school who contacted me and was like, hey, you know, could you help me out with my business? And he has like a general contracting type roofing company. And so he's like, yeah, so we do general contracting. We're doing well with that. And we flip houses. I was like, okay. He's like, and I also do roofing. You know, what should I do? And I was like, one of them, just pick. He's like, well, we're kind of making money on all of them. I was like, cool. You can have a $1 billion roofing company. You could have a $1 billion general contracting company, or you can have a $1 billion company flipping houses. But you can't have all of them. Yes. And so you can do anything you want, but just not everything. Yeah. And unfortunately, we only have one life, and it's just like the hardship is having to crush your own heart and say like, I can't do that. And I think just the higher up you go, the prettier the lady in the red dress looks of opportunity that you have to say no to. Yeah. And every level, I feel like I've learned it until I see a prettier woman in the red dress. You know what I mean? We're like, no, like we can't do that. And it's been really hard learned for me. Yeah. I've made a lot of mistakes that have cost us a lot of money in doing that. So it's not like I'm perfect at it. I'm far from it.
I wanted to hear that, you know, after listening to this amazingly successful couple at their amazing home, at an amazing location here in Austin, I wanted to know that when enough is enough, when would they retire, when would they sell, or what would they like to do? I just really wanted to find out, you know, what their thought process is. So guys, make sure you pay attention, because, you know, this is really good to take notes on what to expect and how their thinking changes. It's really awesome to, you know, think back in a few years when, let's say, you met them first, and then what they say today. It's just really cool to see how their thought process have changed, developed, and I just genuinely care that what's next for them, because they're amazingly successful people who really, really give back to the gym community and helping tons of people. So I really want to know what's next for them.
Yeah, it's funny because like we can retire now if we would like, and we would live a great life and we would spend lots of money and still have plenty. But like, it's never been about that. Like, and it's funny because people will always like, you know, come at you, it's all about the money. You say it's not. It's like, it's really not, because like, what do you do if you don't work? Like people like us, like we both worked so hard our whole lives. It's like, what would I do if I wasn't working? Like I always want something to be working towards. And so it's just, is the thing that you're doing what you love doing? And if it's not, if someone's out there and they're like, well, I don't love what I'm doing, well, either you need to stay the course until it can come to a point where you have enough means or funds to switch to something you love, or change what you're doing, you know? I don't ever want to retire. I don't ever see that as an option. Like it just, that freaks me out. Like I can't imagine not contributing to the world. I think we both just want to have a massive impact.
Right. And I think for me, the revenue is a really good thing to look at, and I mean the profit both, because this just gives you an objective scorecard of the value that you're providing to the marketplace. And so like we are 100% done. Like we could stop tomorrow and spend millions of dollars like yearly for the rest of our life, and we'd be fine. But that actually didn't, like, it honestly doesn't give you a ton of like, you don't feel less pressure. And so that was one thing that I would think is interesting is for everyone is, I did this back of napkin math, which may be useful for everyone, which is like, I made the podcast, I was like, you never make it, because what you think your safety number is based on your current situation. And so I remember when I had my gyms, up until that point, my lifetime goal was to have $4 million in my bank account after taxes. And I was like, because if I have that, then at 5% a year, I make $200,000 a year and I can live on that super comfortably. And then once we had $4 million in our bank account, the thing is that the business that created $4 million a year in your bank account also probably has $10 million a year of liability in terms of like overhead costs, et cetera. And so all of a sudden your $4 million looks really small compared to the overhead and liabilities you're exposed to. And so all you can think of is like, well, shoot, if revenue stopped tomorrow, I would only be able to keep this going for like 5 months. And so you're like, I'm only 5 months away from whatever. So I really think that maybe 12 million in my bank account would be what I need to have. But then when you have 12 million, your liabilities are 30, right? And so again, you're always in that situation. And I remember I watched Bill Gates in an interview, it was him and Warren Buffett. And he was like, yeah, our goal has always been to just have about a year's worth of savings in our bank account.
To cover payroll and employees.
For a year, right. And he was like, yeah, it's about 16 billion. He's like, we're almost there. He was the richest man in the world this time by a mile. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, you never make it. And so the only time that actually happens is where you sell the business, you collect the cash, and then you remove the liability. But then you're stuck in your existential crisis, so what am I going to do with my life? That's another story altogether. But basically, while you're in the game, you're in the game. And so that's why it isn't really about the money, but the money shows you how well you're doing and whether you're growing as a person. And if we feel like we get stuck at the same level, then it means that there's a lesson that we haven't learned yet. And so I think if everyone flips the perspective from like, I can't find a good salesperson, there's no good salespeople, to I lack the skills to find, recruit, hire, train a good salesperson, then it's back under their control. And so for me, like the chapter that we're just in right now is like understanding patience and focus, because that's what is hopefully I think is going to get us to the next level. And I feel like that's what I've had to learn.
No, if anybody listens to this and they just listen to this part, I think they have like a map what they need to look for, and they understand what really it means to make it or work towards to it.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those, like, I just don't understand what make it means. Nobody that is greatly successful that I've met ever feels like they actually are.
No, they keep going.
No, they're like, I suck. I'm poor, because they see what they could be, and they're not there yet.
Exactly.
I think it's also redefining. So most entrepreneurs quit their whatever to start something because they want to be free, right? Most entrepreneurs want freedom, and that's temporal freedom, freedom of time, financial freedom, geographical freedom, and then personal freedom. So it's like freedom to do what you want, where you want, with whom you want, and then whatever you want in terms of like go on a yacht if you want to, right? So it's like having all that freedom. But a lot of like the societal version of freedom is like on a beach with pina coladas or whatever it is, right? Or watching Netflix. But the thing is like you can only do that for like 3 or 4 days, and then you're like, what do I do with my life? Exactly. And so I think if you redefine freedom as choice, that we choose to do this, then we've already accomplished freedom, because there's nothing I'd rather do than what we are doing. I know that because we go on vacation and we leave 2 days into it because I'm like, I'd rather be doing what we do. And so it's, if you make having a choice the goal, then you've accomplished the goal, and then the journey is just growth, personal.
So, so often, Alex and Leah, being in my experience that I have saw and talked to many people, there are two lines of people. One who absolutely love and would die for Alex and Leah. And on the other side, there is the people who like, oh, I want their head on a stick or whatever, they're against it, right? And I'm not saying it because it's a bad thing. That's a good thing. You want that. So, and I ask Alex and Leah what they think about it because they're amazing people. I really like them and they really, truly doing something good. But when you're doing something good at their level, just like Apple, just like Starbucks, there will be always two sides. One who absolutely loves it and one who absolutely hates it. And they are at that high level. And you might not understand that right now because let's say you have one location, a few locations, and you haven't experienced that just yet because the brand is not there yet. But it's really cool to hear what's their thought process on that and what they think about it and how they interact with it and what they're going to do about it and all these things, because it's something that you will have to plan ahead for it, and it's not for everyone. It's not everybody cut out for that. So let's hear what Alex and Leah has to say about it, because I really think that they know what they are talking about, and they definitely do.
Yeah. You have to do it for yourself, because and at the end of the day, the public perception will be what it is, dependent upon how they view themselves. So we have people who love us and we have people who fucking hate us. But it's like, at the end of the day, you just have to go to bed with yourself and each other in our case. And so it's like, who am I as a person, right? And so, yeah, it's funny because it's just the money just signal. Like for me, I always think to myself, I'm like, my goal is to have $1 billion company, like a company that's valued at $1 billion. And it's like, well, why is that your goal? It's like, because someone else in the world has done it, so why can't I? It would, like, I would feel horrible if I didn't know that I tried my whole life to get there. And so I'm like lying on my deathbed and I'm like, I'm not able to meet the Layla who was able to do that. And so it's like, I would love to meet who that person is because I'm not her yet. And so the business is just it's just a vehicle to get there. You know what I mean?
Yes. And one of the interesting things for anybody who's like an employee is like, Mark Zuckerberg, use him as an example. His payroll is probably like, I have no idea, billions of dollars a year. And so like, he's not taking home the majority of the money that his business creates. No. Like he's paying for hundreds of thousands of families, not to mention all the businesses that market and make money off of his platform. And so like, that is why he's compensated the way he is, because he's been able to help so many business owners, and then even with like in all of our company, and then also his own company. And so like, you can think about what he donates to charity, but like, what is the objective of charity? The objective of charity is to help people, right? And so like his company, if you're providing value to the marketplace, is ultimately helping in a far bigger way than anything else is.
Even though he's being painted so bad through the media because of that, and he's the one who, that's why he takes a paycheck too, because he's the one who has to take all that heat. Yeah. And responsible for all of it.
To carry the burden.
Well, it's funny because if you look at any company that's huge and you Google them, you can Google good reviews, bad reviews, and you'll see just polar opposites. Like there's people who love Starbucks and people are like, it's fucking overpriced, it's overpaid, it tastes like shit. And it's just like the bigger you get, the more you have both.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing that we had a mentor tell us that's always been at the forefront of our mind is that hatred is a condition of success. As in like, if you have no hatred, you are not successful. And so like understanding that it is a part of it, and the more successful you get, like with every reaction, there's an equal opposite reaction. And so the example that Layla gave with Starbucks is like, oh my God, like say Starbucks, and some moms are like, oh my God, I go to Target, I get my Starbucks, and like I have a great day. It's like the highlight of my day. And then some people are like, it's overpriced, it's burned, it's ridiculous, blah, blah. It's such a ripoff. It's like, right? You get so angry, and then you pause and you're like, it's fucking coffee. Right? It's just because they've achieved such a level of success and distribution that people have such wildly differing opinions on it, but it's like, it's coffee. And so if you take something into consideration, like how you're gonna try and change a business owner's life or a customer's life that's far more involved than a cup of coffee, how can you not expect to have equal reactions where we have people who absolutely love you and people who absolutely despise you?
Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I really think this was one of our best episodes, just because we went from a timeline from these two amazing people who are a couple, and not only home, but at the office too. And it was just really cool for me personally. I was super excited, to have them, because I just really wanted to hear the whole story, and I wanted to get behind the scenes. I wanted to know them a little bit better, and I just wanted to hear the whole thing. And I really think that once you have watched Alex and Leah's separate interviews and this today, you're gonna have a completely different point of view, and you're gonna have a completely different understanding of who they are, what they do, and what's their goal. They do everything for you, and of course they get rewarded for it, but at the same time they also give back so much to the community. And I really appreciate that I know them, I really appreciate what they do, and I cannot wait to be there with them in the future. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching the episodes, and thank you so much for all the support. 2019 was an amazing year. We had over 5,000 downloads on most episodes, and we have been continuously in the top 200 podcasts on the USA side and the European side. So I really appreciate it for that. Please share, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed below, and just keep sending me emails, messages, and send me suggestions on who you like to see next on our podcast, because that really helps me also to see what you guys want to see and hear next. And don't forget that in 2020, we are planning on having a few live episodes in front of a live audience like The Tonight Show. I cannot wait to have that, and I cannot wait to announce the first one when you can get your tickets and get into the whole room with the amazing crowd and meet all the other amazing people who listen to the podcast and take action on it. So I can't wait till next week for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, check out all the podcasts. Instagram is at FitBiz Podcast, website is fitbizpodcast.com, and you can just reach out to me at any time on any of the platforms. Thank you guys, have a great weekend.